to the north of it, we've been watching this other hurricane, Guillermo, which is centered at 14 degrees north, 114.5 degrees west, and that makes it about 675 miles south-southwest of Cabo San Lucas on the southern tip of Baja California. Look at the winds, 150 miles an hour. So it's a strong Category 4 hurricane, teetering on becoming a Category 5. It's moving to the west at 14 miles an hour. A very classic looking hurricane here, and the good thing about it is that it's moving away from Mexico and not moving into any mass areas, land mass areas, and mainly of interest to shipping only. But it's a pretty powerful hurricane, and we're so happy to say that it's moving into open waters here and should eventually...
storm. You can even see the eye on it on this picture here. Look at that. Here's Mexico. Here's Guillermo. Here are the Hawaiian Islands. And we're investigating some of our long-range forecast models, and they do weaken Guillermo, of course, as it moves its way westward. But by the time we roll into Saturday or Sunday, what's left of this will be coming around the Hawaiian Islands. So we'll see what happens out here. Closing in on Guillermo, here's the latest. Look at the eye on it. Whoa, this is one powerful storm. 150 miles an hour, 155 mile an hour plus is a Category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. So we have a bona fide 4, almost a 5, 14.2 north, 115.7 west, about 700 miles away from any land area, and thank goodness for that. This is a monster, and look at it, just like the old buzzsaw here, churning about in the East Pacific. What about the West Pacific? We've been watching Tina here.
Guillermo. That's a phenomenal hurricane. Sustained winds have been increased as of the mid-afternoon advisory. 160 mile per hour sustained winds and easily gusts in excess of 185, perhaps as high as 195 miles an hour. It's almost tough to envision the wind that strength, especially sustained winds at 160 miles an hour. By the way, on the Saffir-Simpson scale, that puts it solidly in the Category 5 ranking. And you'll notice the westward track at 16. Now it's well southwest of Cabo San Lucas and the coast of Mexico, primarily of marine interests and also research interests. We had a couple of NOAA aircraft fly into the hurricane yesterday and the day before to get some additional data for further study on the dynamics of these incredible weather systems. And you can see, speaking of dynamics, that well-defined eye, the center of circulation, about 25 nautical miles in diameter. We thought at one point earlier this afternoon there may have been concentric eye walls, and you'll see that with some of the strongest hurricanes. What you'll find is the initial eye wall, and then there'll be a ring of incredible convection or thunderstorm development that develops outside of that. And what happens then is that the outer ring becomes the main focusing point for all the air that's flowing in horizontally. So the air is flowing in, it hits that outermost convection wall, let's call it, and that's where we start to get most of the development and the intensification. And as that outer wall starts to collapse or shrink and come in towards the center, the inner wall has been starved of that inflowing moist tropical air, so it collapses and the outer wall starts to take over and then contract. So pretty fascinating stuff, and it's always good to look at it and observe it when it's not a threat to anybody on shore. But we're keeping an eye on it I'm keeping a close eye on it for you. Well, that one got stuck up there, didn't it? There again, the well-defined eye. I want to show you something. There's Hawaii, about 2,550 miles away as of mid-afternoon, still moving west. You can see these cirrus clouds moving to the north, and that tells us the upper airflow here is out of the southwest. But certainly by the time this intense hurricane gets over in this corridor of the Pacific, the upper air may actually change. And we do know there is some cooler ocean waters here. The big Pacific high, the airflow and the ocean flow around that typically brings a tongue of cooler air and cooler water southwestward here on the south side of the high. So this intense hurricane at some point will have to start crossing over some cooler ocean waters. But phenomenal. 921 estimation on the millibars, about 27.20. 27.20 inches of mercury. That's a deep one. And again, we'll keep a close eye on it for interest in Hawaii. Certainly the generation of large ocean swells ahead of this system could arrive several days before whatever would be left of the system. But again, this is something we need to watch very carefully as it continues this westerly course.